If you have any desire to get into quant trading, whether you're looking at shops like Jane Street or Citadel, you can't avoid the fabled technical interview where you're going to be challenged with a variety of brain teaser-like questions revolving around some sort of probability and statistics. Why? Why do they care so much about these ideas, and why do they care that you understand them? Well, fundamentally, quant trading is all about pricing and finding mispricings. But what in the heck does it mean to price something? In this video, I want to talk about why quant traders care about pricing. I want to talk about probability and statistics as it relates to this idea of pricing. And hopefully this will give you a better idea as to why it's so important that you understand intuitively all of these things and you've mastered the tools necessary to solve such challenging technical questions before you tackle real-world problems and start building your own trading strategies. Quant trading is just a game, and it's a game about optimal decision making in the face of uncertainty. And in this game, you're competing against the best and brightest in the world, PhDs in math, computer science, physics. So if quant trading is just a game, then let's start with the simplest version that I can think of to discuss this idea of probability and statistics applied to price and pricing, and that is this notion of a coin flipping game. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about this coin flipping game, talk about a dice rolling game, and then we're going to talk about a trading game, and hopefully you'll see my point and why pricing is really all that matters at the end of the day in order to accumulate wealth or accumulate that idea of a trading edge or a positive P&L over time. If some of the concepts in this video seem a bit foreign to you or you need a refresher, I highly encourage you check out our open source resources available on GitHub, Medium, and of course YouTube. You can even check out quantguild.com for structured lessons and practice questions. Nevertheless, we're going to continue with this idea of a coin flipping game to get started. The game goes like this. We flip a coin, it's heads, we get $2. We flip a coin, it's tails, we get nothing. The question is, how much should I pay for that game? Well, clearly this is an agreement between two parties, right? Because somebody has to pay me that $2, but they're not going to host this game for free. If they hosted this game for free, I would just play it as many times as I possibly could and generate a large amount of wealth for free. So nobody in their right mind would host this game for free. They're not going to say, hey, I'm going to let you flip my coin and I'm at risk of paying you $2, but I get nothing for that risk, right? But what is the correct price to pay? So from statistics, from probability, we have this idea of an expected value. So the probability of heads is 50%, the probability of tails is 50%. We multiply the payout, $2, by the probability of heads, which is 50%. We multiply the payout of tails, which is 0, by 50%, so it doesn't matter, we get 0. And we're left with this $1 here, because 2 times 0.5 is in fact 1. That is going to be the expected value of the game. Great, we have this expected value, this average, this mean value. How does this help us? Well, to answer the question, how much should we pay for this game? This could be one way to answer that question. So in this first scenario, what I want to suggest is we pay this fair price. Now, it's very helpful to look at this game as a series of games in the context of how much we pay to play it. So what I've done here is I've simulated a number of games. So what I have here is I have our wealth over time paying this quote-unquote fair price. That is, if we pay $1 to play it, and we add the expected value of the game, then we've netted out a 0 expected value. Essentially, our wealth has an expected value of 0 playing this game, assuming we pay $1 to play it. That is the expected value of the game. So what happens when I actually play 100 of these games? You say, oh, well, that's strange because in this iteration, if you look at the cumulative wealth, we actually made money. We made $6. So I don't understand. I thought we paid the expected value, and we were supposed to end up with what? We were supposed to end up with a net, right? Now that is a very confusing point often for students. Is every time I run this simulation, I'm gonna get a different outcome. So here I made $8 as my terminal wealth value after playing this game 100 times. If I rerun this here, look, I'm at a loss. If I run this again, I'm at another loss, and so on and so on and so on. Now, when we talk about paying the expected value of the game to play it, and we're saying that we end up with this, risk neutral, this fair game, what are we actually saying? Well, we're saying if we did this series of 100 games, say 10,000 times, and we took the average terminal wealth, that would be 0. And that's exactly what I have down here. So what I've done is I've simulated this game now a very, very large number of times, and I've taken the average terminal wealth. So the average terminal wealth across these 10,000 paths is close to 0. It's negative 12 cents. So that is this idea of paying the expected value, or what is the fair price of this game. That is what it means. It's not in the context of, okay, we simulate one sample path a large number of times. No, that's not at all what we're talking about. This is an accumulation process of the wealth of the game. This could have booms and busts. This turns into some sort of gambler's ruin almost, where, if you have some sort of wealth threshold you're trying to make it to, what is the expected number of times proportionally you would make it to that threshold. You can extend this into a wide variety of problems. I'd love to make a video on gambler's ruin another day. That's a very common hedge fund interview question. But nevertheless, this is what we're saying is if I continued this simulation out to, say, 1,000, right, that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to have my cumulative wealth be based at 0. That's not going to converge to 0. That's not at all what's happening here. But here, what we're seeing is it is, in fact, about 0 for a series of these games to be played. So I've played 100 games 10,000 times, and I've taken the average terminal wealth, and the distribution of the average terminal wealth is, in fact, mean 0, because we've, in fact, paid the expected value of the game. And that's exactly what we would expect to see. We have the probability information for this game. The probability mass function that governs a coin flip is simply 50-50. As we get into harder and more complicated games, discerning that probability mass or density function is the challenging part. That's why we come up with models, to be able to impose these probabilities to try to figure out if we can accumulate some sort of edge over time. That's the whole point of this. If everybody knew the density that governed a particular asset, then we wouldn't have this game, this giant game that everyone's playing. So this is all in the context of pricing, right? We just figured out, okay, we found this average value, this average payout for this particular game where I flip a coin, it's heads, I get $2. Flip a coin, it's tails, I get nothing. We said the expected value is 1. If I pay that, then if I played this game over a series of a large number of paths, then on average my terminal wealth would be 0, because that's what it means to pay the fair value of the game. So how does this play into pricing? Well, we priced this as what? $1. But suppose the person that was hosting this game did not understand basic probability and statistics. Well, then maybe I could propose that I pay below the expected value. What does that look like? Well, supposing that I pay below the expected value, I can still simulate instances of this game where I'm going to make money and where I'm going to lose money. However, if I do this a large number of times, what happens to my wealth? The terminal wealth distribution is no longer mean 0. Not at all. That's because we have this drift, this upward trend on average over time. That's what this drift, this positive expected value over time, over several iterations of this game, means. So if trading is just a game, then aren't we going to want to try to identify these mispricings such that, over a series of a large number of trades, we're accumulating such positive expected value drift as well in the form of P&L? That's exactly right. So the flip side is also true. I can pay above the expected value or above the fair price of the game, and for any individual price path of the game, so this is 100 instances of the game, 100 instances, so on and so on and so on, right? We could make money or we could lose money. But on average, for a large number of paths, what does this look like? Well, if we pay over the expected value, then we are going to have a negative drift. We're going to have negative expected value over time, and this is contributing to then negative P&L. Let's compare all three of these scenarios in a pretty cool looking chart. So what I have here is wealth over time for the instance that you're paying above the fair price or expected value. So in this case, you're paying $1.2 to play that game. And you can see the trend line here. You are in fact losing money over time. And all of these sort of red lattice points here are going to be each iteration of that series. So we're simulating out 100 games 10,000 times or so. And you're going to see that some of these cases tend to be less likely, and some of these cases tend to be more likely, but on average, you are in fact losing money. The flip side is true. If you're paying below the expected value or below the fair price, you are accumulating that wealth, and of course, you have less likely outcomes towards the upper end of 40, towards your 100th iteration of the game. Nevertheless, on average, you are accumulating positive P&L for that game. And if you pay the fair price or the expected value, then you're going to have some, of course, above, some, of course, below. But on average, you are going to be net zero for being involved in that game, assuming you pay the fair price. So this is an example of a game where you have uncertainty. And the optimal decision that you need to make in the face of this uncertainty is, do you play the game? Do you choose to pay to play the game? Well, if somebody offered me less than $1 to play this game, I in fact would, because I know I have edge. If they said I have to pay more than $1, then I am not interested in playing that game. And then of course, if they offer me $1, then that is going to be a risk neutral game, and I can decide whether or not I want to play it based on my risk preferences. Now, of course, you can argue for any of these cases. It's based on your risk preferences. So, maybe I'm willing to pay $1.2 to play this game because I'm willing to take that risk, even though I have a negative edge in that case. So, the probability and statistics that bake into the fair price of the game isn't the only thing that you get to consider, right? What about liquidity? What if this is an extremely illiquid game, and the chance to come about playing it comes only once in a while? Well, then you're going to have to pay some sort of premium for that game. So the expectation or the fair price of the game is really a baseline price to consider. Then there are other factors as well. Of course, this is for the real world. But in the context of trading just being a game, this is exactly what it means to find and identify and act on a mispricing. And the mispricing and pricing in general is founded solely on the fair value of the game or the expected outcomes of the game. And that's usually derived from some sort of probability mass function, probability density function, whatever it is that allows you to take the possible payouts, weight them by their likelihood, and then come up with this theoretical expected value. This can be in fact applied to any type of game of chance. We're going to look at a dice game now, and then we're going to look at a real world trading example, and we're just going to gamify this idea of an option contract. So let's start with a dice game. We are going to say if we roll a dice, we are going to get the payout for whatever value it lands on. So if it lands on a 6, we get $6, lands on 3, we get $3. What is the fair price of this game? Well, we can compute the expected value by weighting each of these outcomes by their probability. It's a uniform, discrete uniform distribution. So we get 3.5. 3.5 is the expected value of the dice roll. So that is the quote unquote fair price to pay. Again, I can simulate this game, right? So if I play this game 1,000 times, who knows? Maybe my wealth will be positive. Maybe it'll be negative. Maybe it'll be positive. We don't know. But if we simulate this, say, set of games a large number of times, then we know we are going to be about 0. We know if we were to run this price path a whole bunch of times, and we take our final wealth value and we take the average of all of our final wealth values, we would in fact have 0. Moreover, if we were to pay below the expected value, then of course we would expect to accumulate that wealth over time. So if we paid below 3.5 for that game, we would expect to accumulate that wealth, accumulate that edge, that P&L over time. And if we paid above the expected value, then we would of course lose that wealth, that P&L, that value over time. So if we look at all three scenarios here, you can see, okay, well, in the case of the paying the fair price, we are about this 0. If we are paying below, we are accumulating that edge. And if we're paying above, then we are losing that edge, losing that P&L. So this is just the same idea of that coin flip game applied to a different game, and that is this dice roll. So somebody is still taking the other side of that game, right? Who's going to pay you? Somebody has to pay you that money. Same thing with the coin flip. Somebody's paying you that $2. Same thing with the dice roll. Somebody's paying you that $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, or $6 based on the outcome of the dice roll. And then you two are going to come to some agreed upon price that's going to allow you to transact and play this game. This is exactly how an option contract works. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the option contract through this gamified lens and see how we can apply this idea of expectation to the price of the option contract. This is not just market making. This is not just option contracts. This goes for any sort of quantitative trading strategy as well. If I'm looking at a giant cross section of firms, let's say I'm looking at the Russell 3000 and I'm using a whole bunch of news sentiment to inform my trades, then what I may have is a giant cross section of sentiment for all of these stocks. I'm going to rank by the top quartile and bottom quartile, and I'll create some sort of long short portfolio. And what I'm doing in that context too is I'm identifying mispricings. I'm saying, hey, in the top quartile, these are typically what? Undervalued. In the bottom quartile, these are typically overvalued. I'm creating a long short portfolio to try to capitalize on some sort of statistical mispricing. So that might be a video for a later date, but nevertheless, this concept still applies to that setting as well, not just market making and pricing derivative contracts. In the pricing of option contracts, we always see this idea of randomness over time, a stochastic process, a Brownian motion. Why do we do this? Why do we care about these models? I hear in pretty much every video that I discuss a model, oh, well, that's wrong. Yes, no kidding, it's wrong. If we all knew the dynamics of the market, then we would have no need for any model ever. But why do we try to impose these models outright in the first place? It's because all of these things are a game, just as the coin flip game, just as a dice roll game. An option contract itself is a game, and trying to trade a cross-section of stocks is also just a game. So what we have here is we have this stock price process. This is a geometric Brownian motion. And what we're doing is we're simulating this price process out to some terminal time t equals 1. In this case, that's going to be a year. And this model is going to allow us to simulate what the price could be in some fixed number of time or intervals, whatever we choose. It could be 1 year, it could be 6 months. You can discretize the days to be daily, weekly, however you choose to simulate this process. This model allows us to, simulate the dynamics of what a stock price path could look like. But if I run this again, we're going to get a completely different path. And if I run this again and again and again and again, we're going to get different paths. And just as if we played the coin flip game 100 times, we play it another 100 times, we're going to get a different wealth accumulation. Same thing if I simulate these price paths over and over again, I'm going to get different price paths. The point of these models is not to try to predict where the stock is going to be. No, it's trying to discern some sort of fair value for this game that is these contracts and determine how much we should in fact pay for them so that we can be either risk neutral or we can achieve some sort of positive or negative edge. So what is this game? Well, I'm going to propose this game to you. Suppose you have this model here and we can generate these price paths. Okay? I'm going to say, let's pick this blue line. We're just going to look at this blue line. Let's see. Maybe I will just do the first line here. We'll just do the blue line. Here's the game that I propose to you. I'm going to pick a threshold. You're going to know the threshold, but I'm going to pick a threshold. In this case, it's going to be 120. Okay? If the stock price ends above 120, then I'll pay you the difference. So if it's 125, I'll give you $5. Okay? But if it ends below 120, then I'm not paying you anything. Okay? This is very similar to that coin flip, is it not? Heads, I give you $2. Tails, or heads I win $2. Tails, I win nothing. It's very similar to that game. But in this case, you might be able to make a lot more if the stock, in fact, goes much higher than 120. So if I run this, let's play this game once. Boom. It lands at, what is this, 107, 106, something like that. You got nothing, right? But I still got paid. You paid me to play this game. I run this again. Boom. Below 120, I still got paid to play this game. You get nothing. Run this again. Boom, I get paid. Here, whoa, I just got blown out. This is 220. I owe you $100. I owe you $100. So what would we agree upon to pay for kind of setting this game up, right? How much would I be willing to accept, and how much would you be willing to pay? In this instance, you made $100. But in the previous 3 instances, you didn't make anything. And I just collected however much money you paid me, because I'm not going to play this game for free, right? If I'm at risk of losing $100, I'm going to owe you some money. So how much should we agree that this game is worth? Well, this is how you go about pricing an option contract. So you can, go through some sort of analytical argument like Black-Scholes and, fair enough, continuous delta hedging, blah, blah, blah. It's not practical, no transaction costs, flat vol surface, all of the things that everybody shouts at me in my Discord and comments section. But even still, in this case, pricing is a game. So what we're going to do is, well, let's just play this game a large number of times, right? Large number of times, and see what the average payout is of the game. We'll see what the average payout is. Yeah, there's some time value of money in there. I'll take care of that. Don't worry. But we'll see what the average payout is, and that's the fair price of the game. In the same way that we calculated the expected value of our dice roll and the expected value of a coin flip, here we're doing the exact same thing, and that's how we price a derivative contract. So I come on down here. I'm going to run this simulation a large number of times for a fixed parameter set, and then maybe I'm going to use 120 because that's the example that I gave. And then I get that the expected value of the game is $6.07. Of course, if I run this again, I'm going to get different values, and I'm going to want to increase this simulation number. I'm going to want to increase the precision of it and whatnot, sure. But this is a rough estimate for the expected value, and if we wanted to, we could even visualize a distribution of the payoffs. And we can see now that suppose that we chose to pay less than the $6. Well, what would happen? If $6 is the expected value of the game, then that's how much we should pay for us to expect to achieve what? Net, just like the coin flip. $1 achieves a net 0 expected value of the game if we continue to play it. But what if we pay below $6? Well, we're going to accumulate positive edge. If we pay above $6, we're going to accumulate negative edge. And if I just run this simulation here, that's exactly what we see. If we pay $1.24, then we're accumulating this positive value. If we pay $11, that's almost double what it's actually worth. We're accumulating this negative value. And this chart and this example for an option contract is the exact same argument as the coin flip game, which is the exact same argument as even ephemerally your distribution can be, oh, you've generated wealth, or oh, you've lost wealth. But on average, what does it look like? On average, here, we're not making money. On average, here, we're making money. On average, here, we're losing money with a dice roll game. On average, here, we're making money. On average, here, we're losing money with an option contract, which is just a game. On average, we're making money when we pay below. On average, we're making a loss or accumulating loss when we pay above. Trading is just a game about optimal decision making in the face of uncertainty and identifying mispricings by applying tools from probability and statistics, computer science, math, and so on. we haven't discussed any of these tools. I've simply applied them and spoken them in plain English, and I've avoided as much technical jargon as possible. But in reality, you need to be able to master things from these domains in order to attack technical interview questions should you have a desire to get into the quant trading space. This is why these questions exist, because if you don't understand fundamentally what's going on mechanically to facilitate the generation of wealth, then how on earth can you possibly hope to research signal or optimize signal or deploy strategy or monitor strategy or retire strategy? You need these tools. They're necessary tools, and that is why these questions are asked in such interview settings. All trading is a game. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I highly encourage you to check out our open source resources if you are interested in brushing up on these necessary skills. Again, you can check out our YouTube, Medium, GitHub, check out quantguild.com, structured lessons, games that apply these topics so that you can master your quantitative skills. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.